All right, so I'm Chris,
And I'm Adam.
and welcome to the Gamers Hall.
Yep. So today we're going to be discussing a topic of multiclassing. So this has been a rule since second edition, at least in the books. It's become a large topic among play groups. Some people like it, some people don't like it. It has evolved through the editions.
Yeah, because it's definitely a lot different now than it was back in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
Right. Yeah, or even in third edition when it was a real big part of the game as well.
Oh, yeah.
It has, in fifth edition, it takes up 2 pages in the player's handbook. Well, let's pop over onto a third. But the rules are pretty streamlined. It's fairly easy to understand.
Yeah, it only really gets complicated when you're multi-classing in different casters.
Right. But it is a rule that we generally allow in our campaigns.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about that today.
Yeah.
We're going to really get into the good, the bad, and what
the
you
role
can do with
play.
it. Yeah.
And also give you some homebrew options that we think might increase or possibly restrict, but also help evolve your games.
Yeah.
But let's get into the good.
Yeah. And if you like this video, make sure to like it, subscribe, hit that bell notification so you know when we drop some more videos.
Yeah, and hey, leave some comments. Tell us what you guys think. We'd love to hear what you guys think.
Yep.
A lot of the reasons why people want a multi-class, I mean, first off, it is a variant option, so not everyone's playing by these rules.
Right. This is a choice made at the beginning of a campaign, whether it's allowed or not.
Yeah,
generally.
it's something that's going to be talked about in session 0.
Right.
But most of the reasons someone's going to go towards role-playing or multi-classing is because it just gives you more options.
Yes. Lots of options. The fact that you now have the ability to not only be in one class, you can be in all of the classes, really creates different scenarios for you to play through. I mean, you have different powers, different abilities, spells, maybe outlooks in the game, depending on what options you're picking up. I mean, there's lots of ways that you now can vary your character. Or the DM can now help a character vary themselves by giving them opportunities for, hey, well, here's an option you got now, you can go with it, and it's something for even DMs to play off of. Yeah, now my player has picked up a level of Paladin. Well, now I have an option to push a type of narrative because of that.
Yeah. Maybe the deity's going to get really focused on that person and send them little tidbits here and there.
Yeah.
But also just the fact of maybe a character wants something and maybe they're a new character, new player, so that they don't know how to do this. So maybe talking to the DM and saying, hey, my character is lacking in this, and I would like to be able to do this. Well, then multi-classing could be the option for that character to get what they want. Maybe you're that rogue who's listen, I really need a good way to use my disguises, but these disguise kits, I keep running out of them, and I keep the materials, I can't always find them. Well, maybe now you want to dip into that warlock and have disguise self at will.
Yeah. Or another option is you shore up the weaknesses of your party by, we don't have a good healer. Everybody wanted to play a fighting type. Well, I'm going to pick up a level of cleric or a level of bard just to give that ability of hey man, get yourself up. Let's not die here. That creates definitely more opportunities for the party just because you picked up one option that you can play a more supportive role.
Yeah.
Or in some cases, you might become the focus of the group because you picked up a different option where well, now we have somebody we can focus all our buffs on since you picked up this role.
Yeah, or maybe now everybody has to protect you because you're the one that can pick everybody up because potions cost too much money.
Right. Yeah, and then having wands and like, oh, well, I've already used almost all wands. We can't use any more. All the charges. There's different reasons why you want to pick this up. Multiclassing definitely gives you those options in so many different ways.
Yeah, so much more. And then another one of the good things is just that, I mean, this is going to increase the power of your character.
Yes, this is one of the main reasons I believe most people multiclass. It's for the power.
Yes.
There are some options that come when they are connected, they make a much stronger ability than they would separate.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Paladin Warlocks,
Sorcerer Warlock, that coffee lock that is big on the internet right now.
Yeah.
And
the dip in a cleric level to pick up plate, full plate armor, heavy armor.
Oh yeah. And there's so many different options that you can go through and play with to just increase the power of this character.
Yeah. I mean, dipping in a little bit of sorcerer to get subtle spells, so you can make sure a spell goes off all the time, that somebody can't stop it, or just having access to invisibility when you normally wouldn't, taking a few levels. I mean, there's just...
Yeah, Warlock invocations are amazing. Dipping into Artificer, so now you can make your own magic items.
Yeah.
With just a little, 2-level dip?
Yeah. Paladin, just to get a bump in damage, just to say, I'm going to smite. Just this spell slot, just here to hit harder with. That's... Or... The classic best, one of the best things to multiclass in, let's pick up 2 levels of fighter. So I can just have an extra action on
2 levels of fighter is good for any class, doesn't matter which it is.
Will always help. You get a fighting style, and you get
action surge.
Action surge. And every class in the game could use one more action.
Oh, and let's not forget second wind. Bonus action, D10 plus fighter level hit points.
Just enough to get you out of the red.
Yeah, I mean... Yeah, so the power that this is going to give your characters is, depending on what you pick, is going to definitely increase exponentially.
It's going to be really fun in creating things that you can do to fight bigger opponents, much bigger opponents, just because of that bump in power. They might be able to take on that dragon a little bit earlier than you thought they would. That creates a really cool moment because they're just powerful enough to do something they normally wouldn't.
Right. And then, let's get into another one of the goods about multiclassing is the opportunities that can arise from role-playing.
Yes. Like, why did you take a level of rogue?
Yeah, I mean, why? Like, what did you do? Was there some kind of event that happened? Was it just a need because the party had it, and if that's what the party needed, well, then how are you going to explain this?
Yeah. Did you pick up a magic item that's talking to you, and now you suddenly have a level of warlock you didn't realize because it's a cursed item maybe, and now you're just stuck with it.
Oh, that's interesting. Is, praise me and I will give you power. It's like, okay, bam.
It's kind of like in Waterdeep, the aberration, the aboleth,
the
Stone of Galore.
Stone of Galore.
It's an aboleth in there. You could say, well, I picked up a level of warlock because I've become bonded to this Stone of Galore. But there's lots of roleplay ways you can go about this. Just with the options of, my character, I played my character as a cleric at first, and I was really about healing, but as the campaigns progressed, I realized I like to get in the middle of things. I really want to be a fighter more than a cleric, so you end up picking up fighting styles to benefit. And that's just a common progression of the character.
Yeah. Now you are a different kind of war priest. Right. That's not your domain, but you kind of redirected yourself into it through multiclassing.
Yeah. Your god was a god of nature, and now you're an avid avenger of nature just because of that. And then, hey, that might dip you into paladin because now you're not only were you worshiping the god, you learn how to fight for the god, now you're just fervent belief of what you're doing has caused you to dip into paladin. And that creates a lot of really cool role play aspects for the party members and especially the DM, because the more you give a DM to play with, the more options they have to continue this campaign.
Oh yeah, because I mean, remember when Adrian was a paladin of Tiamat, but then you convinced him to forsake Tiamat and actually become a follower of Umberly.
Yeah,
and like you set up a whole you actually got the ritual spell and like did this whole ritual, and like you actually drowned him.
Yes,
and brought him back in order for him to become a paladin of Umberly.
Yeah, it was a really cool moment for him to not necessarily multi-class in that way, but it does create an option for him to now. He's changed his roles, and maybe he might pick up the Fury of the Storm like I did, because I was also a paladin, or not paladin, it's a barbarian cleric. Well, now that gives him he could also pick up barbarian and pick up that the storm barbarian, and go in that route, because now he feels the power of Umberly in the sea. Multiclassing, it just has so many cool things that go with it.
Yeah, I mean it's good. It's gonna up the power. More options,
more role play.
It's what's good and great about multiclassing.
Yeah. And as veteran players, we definitely can take much more advantage with this as well. I mean, as veteran players know how. Well, I know that certain monsters are going to do some things like this. I know that when I play it this way, or I know more about the world, so I can have more role play. And I know that multiclassing in this will open some doors. Veteran players are going to make a lot of use out of.
Oh, absolutely. And we know that according to the studies that Wizards done, multiclassing is really. A lot of people tend not to multiclass, and I think that's because so many new players, they don't understand the mechanics of it, and they tend to go to a single class. But a lot of the veteran players are typically going to multiclass.
Because at some point you get bored of the same thing.
Yeah,
and multiclass definitely adds more flavor to it. Definitely changes it up.
And sometimes, if you're trying to portray a certain build, well, you almost have to multiclass in order to portray that character that you want.
Yeah, like to be a unarmed fighter. Yes, they have a feat for it now, but to be an unarmed fighter, you're going to have to probably pick up a level monk, probably, just to get that actual feel of, well, I want to be an MMA fighter. Well, monk is, you can do it as a fighter, you can do it as a barbarian if you really wanted to, but monk is really the only one that does that, so you're going to have to pick that up. That doesn't mean you can't jump into other fighting feats, pick up different fighting styles.
One level of monk, now you get that bonus action to get the... you got to go second level for that.
That's true.
One level gives you the bonus action extra attack.
Yeah.
Unarmed strike. So...
Yeah. A little extra hit.
Yeah.
A little kick to the shin. So there's a lot of good.
A lot of good
with multiclass.
All right, but now... let's go into the bad.
Yep.
All right, so the bad about multiclassing, and it's one of the biggest things is unbalancing.
Yeah.
So
you can create a huge unbalance, and the one that feels it the most is the DM.
Yeah, the DM typically is going to have to work harder because in the lower levels, multiclassing makes the characters just that much stronger that the DM typically has to... If the DM doesn't ramp up and throw things harder at the players, then they're typically going to steamroll whatever the DM throws at them.
Yeah, and that creates boredom.
Yeah, because it's fun to let the players steamroll a few times, but if they steamroll every single combat, it's going to get very stale and very bored very quick.
Or the worst is when they steamroll something that they're not supposed to. A big baddie it dies that you didn't plan on them dying. He needed to get away. Well, because they're multi-class in these different abilities and they have all these options that they can say, well, I can snare him, I can stun him, I can then hit him for 30 damage in one turn, and this is all at level 5.
Yeah.
I'm going to destroy this one guy, and you're like, well, you just kind of killed my person for what's going to push you to the rest of the campaign. He's not going to get away. He's not going to tell his compatriots. He's not going to, or she's not going to do whatever. It's done. You're too powerful to deal with what I got, and that becomes a huge issue with DMs, because when you have something planned in your head, and it should work out fine, but the players are just that much better, then it really sucks. It really becomes
because finding
depressing.
that balancing of the characters versus what the encounters are facing can sometimes be so difficult,
right?
Because you don't want to, like, sometimes it's like, okay, well, they're this strong, they should be able to face this, and then you throw it at them, and then you TPK the party.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, last time you guys steamrolled this, so I figured this wouldn't be a problem.
Completely obliterated it.
Yeah, and newer DMs are going to have a lot harder time with that. And although I have found out that throwing spellcasters is a good way to balance.
Yeah.
But it kind of sucks if you're having to throw a caster in every encounter to balance things for the party.
Right. And it doesn't make sense. Like, why is there always a cleric of Grumsh with every single orc that pops up? Why is there always a lich or something hanging around? Like, it just doesn't make sense. And I think the other big unbalancing is, well, one player is playing just the generic class, just sticking to it, and then you have another player that's picking up all these different classes and multiclassing. Well, this player with the multiclassing now can do what this player can do as well, and possibly better because of the other options they have. Well, this causes feel bads for the regular player that's just like, well, I just want to be a paladin. That's all I want to be. I don't want to be anything else. I just want to show my devotion to my god and my ideals. And this guy, well, I'm a paladin, warlock, sorcerer that's going to do this. Oh, yeah, I can smite every turn. Oh, we're going to go through a bunch of different short rests and stuff, and you need your long rest to get back. Well, I'm doing all this every fight. What are you doing?
Well, I mean, I've been through that before because I had a character who was a rogue, and the monk of the party could literally
outrogue you,
outrogue me, outlock pick, out stealth, out detect traps. Like, I was like, well, you know what? I'm just gonna lean harder into my sorcerer now.
And he never was a rogue.
No,
never became a rogue. He was a monk, warlock, and he outrogued the rogue without touching a single level of that class. He did as much damage as you could do as a rogue. He had more mobility, more damage, or I've already said damage output, just more options. And was doing all the same things you were.
Oh yeah, I quit,
minus healing.
I quit using all of my rogue features except for the invisible.
Ledger Domain, the invisible hand is your arcane trickster.
Yeah,
you use that quite often.
Yeah, that was it though. Like everything else, it was like, hey, like checking for traps. You got it, bro.
Yeah,
like I'm just the healer of the group. Remember,
and that causes feel bads in the players. That's not good when another player steps on another player's toes.
It wasn't that bad for me. I was like, okay, I'm just going to lean harder into this. But for some players, if that's what their main focus was, if you had a character who was the rogue and this is what they wanted to do, but now they're getting out-rogued by a non-rogue, that's when the feel-bads are really going to come in. It's like, oh, come on.
Or another one, a classic one, is when the tank is not the tankiest person there. When the person that's in full plate armor that is going, I'm sword, I'm bored, I'm here to protect you, I'm doing this, and you got a wizard up in the front line, and it's like, what are you doing up here? Like, get back, you're supposed to be casting spells. He's a forged domain cleric that's 6 levels of wizard, and he's like, well, I'm going to walk around in full plate armor, and I'm going to do all this stuff. And the fighter who's all about protection and stuff goes, well, what's the point? You out-damage me now, and you out...
Yeah, because that Blade Singer wizard can get some pretty high AC.
Right? Or a monk with access to shield.
Oh yeah.
All of a sudden, the monk that's supposed to be getting in and out of combat hitting and running or doing that, just stays there and says, "You're not going to hurt me. I have a huge AC."
Yeah.
And that can cause trouble.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's definitely cool, but it can cause trouble.
And, another one of the bad things is the fact that some people will multi-class just to gain mechanics.
Right.
And they don't really want to actually describe or put any kind of like role play into it, because it's like, oh, you're a warlock? Like, well, who's your patron and when did you become a warlock? How did this happen? I just got the abilities, bro. Like, let's not focus on this. I just wanted the spell slots and invocations. We're good. And or I just wanted to be the hex blade and attack with my charisma.
Or or in some cases, I just want to level paladin so I can smite. That's it.
Yeah.
And then you go, well, why you want to be a level paladin? Well, I want to smite. But why does your character want to be a level paladin? He wants to smite. Okay. All right now. That could be very frustrating for a DM, and that's their explanation. Is I just want it because now I can do that.
Yeah. How did you suddenly become a level of druid? I just wanted wild shape, bro. Like,
yeah. Well, why are we reading into this? This is a game. Well, maybe this is the problem. This is not just a game to everybody. This is also a story that really, some people really want to tell a story. They want to be involved in the story. They want to read like a book or be like a movie, and all of a sudden one of the heroes in the movie gains a power and everybody goes, what? When did you learn how to fly? That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't work in movies very well. It's not really going to work in D&D very well.
It kind of does nowadays, and it's why a lot of movies are tending to suck. Like, I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this. I don't care, but the newer Star Wars, Rey was super powerful with no training.
Yeah.
No real training. It's like, oh, I'm just going to mind tell this guy what to do. It's like, you've never trained for that. You've never thought about that. Suddenly you just can do it. And it's
no explanation.
Yeah. I'm going to telepathically, move this lightsaber from, super far away, a couple 100 feet over to my hand, or no training.
Or somehow is proficient enough to hold off somebody that has been trained for years by a master, one of the greatest masters, if you follow the lore.
Yeah.
Able to hold him off in a lightsaber duel, or a guy, Finn, held off Kylo Ren long enough for
Rey to get there.
He's just a stormtrooper.
Yeah.
Fighting this knight that is the leader of some of the most elite fighters in the Empire, the New Order, First Order.
Yeah, like, what's the term? Mary Sue? Like, the Mary Sue comes along, and it's like, well, how did this person become the Mary Sue? Like, when did this happen? Like, why are they so powerful now? Like, look, I don't want to explain it. I just wanted these mechanics. Let's play.
It can create moments like, oh, what? And, crazy bewilderment, and well, now we can jump into this, but most of the time, it doesn't. It just creates a moment where the DM goes, really? And then another player at the table goes, hey, that's my thing. So taking multiclassing just for abilities is not, in my opinion, a good reason to multiclass. I think it's a very, very, very bad reason to multiclass. But I'm a little biased on that for a particular front.
I mean, I can definitely agree with that. Yeah. But let's get into another one of the bad things, which is confusion about spell slots.
Yeah. This is the part where because certain classes do different things.
A good portion of the multi-class section of the book is from spell slots, actually.
Yeah. I mean, half of a page in one of the little chunks is all about the spell slots that are gained from multi-classing. Because, once you multi-class, your old spell slots from your other class, they go away. You don't use it. You now use just the chart that is for multiclassing.
Yeah, and if you're a full caster, it goes as normal. If you go into a half caster, it's half that level rounded down. A third caster is a third of that rounded down. By the way, the artificer is the only exception to this rule, because they're a half caster, but they're actually rounded up.
Yeah, which sounds simple, but when you start thinking about, certain classes having levels, spell levels that they normally wouldn't have, or access to more spell slots than they normally wouldn't have, and I believe the worst one about this is the Warlock. Warlock
because they're their own thing.
They're their own thing, and these spell slots come back on short rest, and they're usable for other spells. Well, some other spells. I think there's some cases that you have to be a certain spell slot for a certain class, but I think it's very rare.
Yeah,
it's very rare.
I mean, I think you can use those. You can use the Warlock spell slots for.
And there might be
anything you multi-class in, unless there's a specific
certain abilities. I can't think of them, but I know there's some case in there like, well, I can't use this for that. That's very rare. But now you have a paladin with unlimited spell slots.
Yeah.
Well, sort of unlimited spell slots.
Well, that's how the paladin infinite smite build came.
Yeah. Or
every short rest, this man can be pumping out second level smites all day long, third level if they go high enough.
Yeah,
or fourth or fifth.
Or you just have a class that normally wouldn't have many spell slots. Now they have a bunch to do their thing. Like a Eldritch Knight suddenly takes a level in Cleric or Wizard, and now all of a sudden they got a huge bump in spell slots.
Yeah, or maybe someone took a 2-level dip into Warlock just to get the invocations, but now they have 2 free second level spell slots they can do every short rest. And for a wizard, maybe that's 2 magic missiles, maybe that's 2 shield spells.
Oh yeah, 2 shield spells is freaking huge at any given time. Nope, I won't take that. No, thank you. Is big. Like, that's really, really big.
Oh, it's extremely big.
So really, the one that abuses this the most is the dip into the Warlock.
Yeah.
It's the one that's the most abusive. The other classes, they get features that they normally wouldn't get, and then spell slots they can use. But most of the time, it's the fact that the Warlock gets extra spells that anybody can use.
Yes.
Over and over again.
Yeah, it's pretty strong, and a lot of power builds tend to use it.
Yeah.
But then now let's go into the next bad thing, which is the fact that there's really not a lot of description on multiclassing. It's literally, as long as you've got a 13 in whatever your prerequisite abilities are, then that's it.
You can take a level.
You can take a level, and you have to also have at least a 13 in the main abilities of your original class.
Yeah. So the main bad part about this is that multiclass is so streamlined that it doesn't take into account all the other possibilities that it can have, which early on in this edition, that was fine. It worked perfectly. In the first year of 5th edition, multiclass was just fine. It didn't cause that many problems. There wasn't a whole lot of things, but now we're 6 years into 5th edition, and there's multiple books, there's different campaign settings, there's more magic items, there's a whole lot of things that go into the game that now picking up another level in a character can open up a huge amount of options that the multiclassing just didn't account for.
Yeah.
And that definitely causes some issues. There should be a little bit more to this variant rule than there is.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that. There could have been a greater detail on it, or just ways to expand it so that it makes the power creep not so high.
Right.
Because that's kind of the biggest problem, is that when you multi-class, the characters that tend to get a lot stronger. Not a little bit stronger, a lot stronger.
Right.
Which, I mean, but it's very easy to understand.
Very easy. It's once you've read it a couple of times and somebody's really sat down and said, yeah, this is how it works, everybody gets it. You all get, spell slots get a little complicated later on, but other than that, it's extremely simple. Yeah. All I need is this. Oh, and when I take 1 level of this, I get these extra proficiencies. So, okay, cool. That's not hard. That's very simple to do. That doesn't take into account what's happened in the story. It It doesn't take into account what the players are capable of. It doesn't take into account what the DM might want. It's just, this is an option they can do since you've allowed it. Now they can just take it.
Yeah.
I'd meet the prerequisite, take it, and then let's just see where that runs.
Yeah, which, I mean, hey, that's a good segue to the next problem, which is it makes it harder on the DM.
Right.
How is the DM supposed to explain this? How is the DM supposed to deal with this additional power boost that the player characters have suddenly gained?
Yeah.
And
where is that in the story? Like, we've been doing a whole sea campaign, and somehow you're going to pick up a level in rogue to become a thief that climbs buildings and stuff. It's like, you rarely ever go to a building. Why are we doing this? You're going to use that to climb the mast a bunch of times?
Makoto Nagano style Ninja Warrior.
Sometimes that just makes no sense to the DM why you're doing that. I mean, there's been several times I've had several players I just literally go, that makes no sense, dude. Why are you doing that in my campaign?
Yeah, it's like we've been at the sea for the entirety of this campaign, and suddenly you chose to become a paladin of some deity that literally you've never come across.
Yeah, you've never even heard of. And you're like, yeah, I want to do that. You've been a pacifist this entire time. You're now a freaking worshiper of the god of battle. What?
Or suddenly, like, they gained a warlock patron, and it's like some otherworldly patron. It's like, where did you come across this? How do you know about it? And like, when did this happen?
Or you pick up a level of sorcerer, and it's like, well, how did you unlock the potential in your bloodline? Like, where did this come about? What triggered this? All of a sudden, you just woke up and had a bad day, and you grew scales because now you're a draconic sorcerer. It's like, is that how we're explaining this? Because that.
I mean, typically that kind of is how that's explained.
It typically is, but a lot of times there's something that pushes the story. It's like, that's not inherently a bad thing that happened, but it's a bad thing for the DM to have to roll with, because now they're like, well, what do I do with this?
Yeah, that's typically the thing. It's like,
not
okay.
Most of these things are not bad for the player. It's bad for the DM, because now the DM has to. Everybody needs to realize the DM has to take all of what you're doing and make it relevant in their campaign. Because if it's not, it's a waste of time for you. And the players don't want it to be a waste of time, right? They want it to be fun. But you have to realize that the DM's also there too, and he needs to make sure that everything you're doing makes sense in the story, so he can also have fun too, or she can have fun. But that's such a huge issue when the player just does something and does not take the time to explain why.
Yeah, because I feel like if you're gonna multi-class, there should be some type of explanation. Which, let's get into the role play.
Let's do it.